Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of The Green Pill Secret. This week, we have a economic podcast because we're going to talk about, oh no, please don't go to sleep, universal basic income. Yes, we're going to talk about that monthly check that you get from the government to tide you over for anyone in this country, no matter how much money you have, no matter how rich you are, how poor you are, everyone gets a check. Now, I do think about this a bit, and I've thought about it, and I don't think the basic concept of $1,000 a month would actually work. And it's not that I don't like the UBI, it's this. First of all, when Andrew Yang proposed that in 2020, we already had a lot of inflation. So I'm going to go back to 2000 and say you get $1,000 as if it was 2000 and COLA, cost of living adjusted for today. You know what that comes out to? That comes to $1,832.78 every month. Yeah, more. Yeah, and I do that because I think that this is really a good basis for a UBI where you can't work, you just take the UBI. You can work, earn more money, get a nicer place, get some nicer things, get better food. But you get an UBI, that's going to cost your basic income. You probably can find, at least maybe in the non-crowded areas of the country, housing and food and all of that for that cost, hopefully. But I'd change a couple of things. First of all, a kid probably doesn't need as much. Kid still is a citizen and should get their money, but I'm going to say you get half. Kids, for each kid, $916.39. It's not too bad. It's good. Parents, this is for you. So in this case, we're saying no earned income tax credit anymore, but we are going to just give you that fat check for $916 per child. Earned income tax credit would cost you, or rather gain you, let's say for three children, $7,830 per year. But for three children's under the UBI, you'd get $32,990, almost $33,000. It's a better system, don't you think? And you keep getting it, no matter how many kids you have. Now, yes, that incentive is giving you an incentive to have more kids. And I recognize that maybe people shouldn't necessarily just have kids to get money, but obviously, a person is a person. They deserve some UBI. So, from the simplicity of it. And I would also hurt some people because two people living in a house because they're married, is that really qualifying for two full checks of UBI? Maybe not. And so I do propose something more along the lines of yes, you're going to get a big fat check, a bigger, fatter check than you would have had as an individual, say $2,749.17. You basically are going to have the equivalent of 1.5 persons of money every month to help you with your household. And all of these basic concepts would be what you'd be entitled to as an American. That's the UBI. That is how a UBI would work in this one proposal. But now you're very right in thinking to yourself, how the F am I going to pay for this? Because the adults, the single adults, are taking almost $3 trillion a year. The couples are taking almost $2 trillion a year. And the kids are taking almost $1 trillion a year, 842 billion a year. Social Security already is just 1.5 trillion. You could take the entire Social Security budget and you would have nearly a quarter of it. And even if you took all the other programs, if you just took out the SSI, of course, SSI is just 57 billion a year. That's the Social Security for folks that aren't 65 or older, that are basically, well, and ever remember Social Security, you can take at different ages, but whatever age you normally would take it, these are for folks that are younger than that, but they have some issue that prevents them from working. That is what SSI is generally for. And that's only 57 billion. And SNAP, food stamps, that is only 100 and almost 113 billion. So again, we're talking chump change compared to the monies I'm talking about. If you're talking about the earned income tax credit, which I briefly mentioned before, that costs about 72 billion a year. Again, chump change compared to the trillions that I've talked about. Should we pull that money out of the defense budget? Well, maybe some of it. The US government budget overall is definitely big enough to cover the 5 trillion that we're talking about, but you're kind of pretty much gutting everything, and you don't want to gut everything. You don't want to just turn this thing into a UBI and that's it. No NASA, no uh, institutes of health, no CDC, no Housing and Human Services, and all of the other stuff, the Department of Education, all of these things that are doing things. The FDA, no cyanide in your food. We need the FDA. We don't want cyanide in our food just to make our milk look whiter. Um, all of these things are indeed costing the government money, and I'm not proposing that we get rid of that. Indeed, I think the biggest thing, and it's still not enough money, but the biggest thing we could do to at least increase the budget fairly is if we're going to say we're going to grab Social Security and take it away and just give you a UBI instead. There's a couple of issues there. First and foremost, let's say we don't do means testing anymore. We don't cut it off at 150 or whatever it is right now. We say it's not your first 150 that's taxed and you get everything else for free. It is up to infinity. You get $1 billion in a year, you're getting taxed on the FICA at the percentage of FICA for 1 billion. That's going to create a slightly bigger Social Security, but it's not going to be enough. The other thing that I will say, and I want to be fair, because my audience, I would hope, are in the 16 to 29 range. And for you folks, this is a brilliant plan because you may be looking at that Social Security years and years down the road, and you're not even sure if you're going to get it. Believe me, we Gen Xers were kind of worried that we would get it because we would thought the baby boomers might eat it all up and there'd be none left for us. But in the long and short of it, this is the benefit for you because you'll still get the FICA taxes, but you'll get the money right away. And I think that I can't imagine that if you're getting this fat check and you have the ability to work, that you would want to sit home twiddling your thumbs. You want to do something and you'd love to get something more out of life. Plus, the UBI is only a basic cost of living. It's a basic income. It is not going to be giving you a nice night out or a really nice car or anything like that. It's not necessarily going to even buy you a house. You're not going to be able to save up enough money under a UBI to get a house. And so, in that respect, the UBI is there just to break through, just to survive, so that no one is left behind. But if you can, you will work and you'll earn good money and you'll pay into the system through your FICA taxes, your Social Security taxes, and you'll cover those costs. Now, can we afford this given all of that? And given that I've just spoken to the benefiting demographic, the 16 to 29, let me just face the facts to the Generation X and the millennials too, to some extent, and certainly the baby boomers and even some of the silent generation that might be watching this. Because you are now getting those Social Security benefits or will be soon, especially for the Gen X folks that are facing it and the baby boomers that are almost all having it right now. What I proposed is probably less than you would have gotten in Social Security. It reduces your Social Security benefit. And you, having paid into the system, are thinking to yourself, how dare you reduce my money I paid in? I want it back. Well, the thing is, you didn't pay in all that much. Your payroll taxes are generally multiplied so that when you eventually do retire, you're getting within the first 3 years, everything you put in and everything else is golden and coming out of your grandkids or your kids. And in that respect, it's not quite as bad as you think because you're not paying your fair share anyway. You're getting more than you put in. You're getting a lot more than you put in. And hopefully you can see that if you're benefiting from a system that is pulling money out of your kids and grandkids' future, because you're not getting your money that you put in, you're getting their money. Social Security is a system that you got the money, you paid in the money for the greatest generation, and now your millennial kids are paying in for you. That's how that works. You're taking their money. And as such, think about it for a second. Maybe you're just better off getting this basic universal income, the universal basic income. And you don't have to have bureaucracies that decide whether you deserve food stamps, doesn't have to decide whether you're qualifying for welfare. And by the way, welfare itself, the TANF budget is about 34 billion a year. So again, chump change. None of that stuff exists anymore. Just a fat check. You're single, adult, you get one check. You're a couple, you get a different check. For each couple that has a kid, you get more checks. And that's it. And that's all it is. The bureaucracy becomes very, very simple. And as far as the marriage, yes, you're losing the benefit of having two UBIs because you're going down to 1.5 for two, but you still have the married filing jointly and head of household tax benefits that are going to change your tax brackets and make it so that you can earn more income and be taxed less for it. So you're getting a financial benefit. And that's what I started with, and that's what I'll finish with. You're just going to be better off. So UBI, consider it. It could be a thing. Thank you, everyone, for watching this week's The Green Pill Secret, and I hope to see you next week.